In today's show, Keandre from Hoop Intellect is here. We're talking all about Trailblazers draft prospects. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's episode, one of the great NBA draft experts that you're going to find on the internet, Keandre from Hoop Intellect is here. Keandre, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you for having me on the show.
Yeah, well, listen, I told you before we started that I'm not a big college basketball person. Like, I watch every Carolina basketball game, but I'm not deeply plugged in. So I need people like you who are on it and have nuanced opinions of how it all works to kind of get me through it, much less all the international guys that I don't have access to. Your YouTube channel has been an incredible resource for me over the last, I don't know, three plus years, roughly, give or take, that I've really been been a fan. So straight up, I'm happy to have you on. I'm happy that you said yes to come on. I'm excited. So in today's show, we're just going to talk about kind of draft prospects as they fit with the Blazers. Before we get into it, I want to know sort of overarching. Are you a fit guy or are you a best player available guy? What is your sort of mindset when it comes to the draft?
Yeah, so I think for the most part, I lean more towards best player available, but there are obviously a lot of different situations where fit is very important. And I think that can ultimately decide some of the success that a certain player might have. Now, if we're looking at you have a point guard and there's a point guard available that you think can be better or is obviously better, you go ahead and take them. And we can go down the line of different positions in different situations or examples of that. But for the most part, I'm kind of more best player available if the talent is able to fit in some capacity. So that's kind of my approach for the most part.
I lean there too. Friend of the program, Raphael Barlow, always likes to say that if the player doesn't fit, they're not the best player available. He's a big believer in it. But then for me, if you're thinking about the Trailblazers, they didn't draft Chris Paul because they had freaking Sebastian Telfair. And there are times when maybe drafting a second 6-foot tall point guard who is going to be one of the best players of his generation could have been more valuable than Martell Webster. Obviously, that's like hindsight. I was pretty hyped on Martell, honestly. I thought he was going to be Kobe, but but I was wrong. So yeah. So with that, like the Blazers, they have a lot invested in young guards, right? They have when you take Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson to back-to-back drafts, it probably doesn't make a ton of sense to draft another guard. I think there's a threshold, like you said, where it's just like too talented to pass up. But I think I tend to agree with you that there's that, like, say Rob Dillingham from Kentucky doesn't make sense. Do you value Dillingham enough where he would even come into the conversation where you'd have to make a debate, or for you, it's not that high?
I don't think so. I don't think I would. I'd prefer to stick with what the Blazers have going right now. And I'm a big Dillingham guy. I think I'm probably just a little bit higher than maybe most are at this point, but it's kind of all over the place. So you'll find people as high as top 3 to, late in the lottery. But for the Blazers specifically, I think that he wouldn't necessarily be someone that I would consider, even though I do think he's one of the premier talents in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, you have him on your big board as the first college kid off the board, so you are a believer indeed. One more question: What does weak draft mean for you in this context? Like when people say 2024 is a weak draft, what does that mean?
I think for the most part, it has more to do with the type of talents at the top of the class and their projectability to become higher level stars and be able to impact the game in multiple ways, and maybe have also the physical tools to match some of the production and all those types of things that we've seen in previous drafts. Obviously, last year you got a guy like Victor Wembanyama at the top, but you also have a Brandon Miller. You've got the Thompson twins. You have Scoot Henderson with his pedigree and his track record in the G League going through there, and obviously the physical attributes and athleticism he has. Before that, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero. There's a lot of different guys that this class doesn't necessarily have. So that's kind of what I think most people would say by weak draft. And you also have guys who may have some intriguing pieces of their games, but are missing something in an area. Alex Sarr, it might be certain offensive abilities, or just being able to fit as a 5-man full time, or another guy like a Ron Holland. You've got a lot of guys with pieces to be potentially some of those guys towards the top. They're just missing in a few key areas, and so that's what I would say it is.
How many of the 2023 guys would you take ahead of the 2024 guys? Like, obviously you're taking Wemby off the board. Brandon Miller, Scoot, Thompson twins, are they number one in this draft class?
They would be for me, and it's easy to say that now, but I think even comparatively, I think I would probably consider Sarr as early. He's my number one. I would consider him as early as maybe six-ish in that class, where like the Jarris Walker, Anthony Blacks, Cason Wallace's for me. But the rest of the guys, like you already mentioned, Wemby, Scoot, Brandon Miller, the Thompson twins, I would all have ranked higher than the guys in this class.
That gives you some sense of kind of what 2024 looks like. The Blazers, they've got 2 picks in this draft. Likely, there's a 3.5% chance that they only have one if the Warriors jump up, but they're very likely to have something like 4 and 14. I think that's kind of where they are. If they're there, I want to ask you about some guys kind of at the top of your board, and then we'll talk about sort of late lottery stuff a little later. You've got Ron Holland too. Everybody, most people, I shouldn't say everyone, most people seem to have Alex Sarr at the top of their big board, but Ron Holland for you at 2 on your big board. And this is, let me, in case you don't know, or in case you're an audio listener, Hoop Intellect, a wonderful YouTube channel, and a week ago, 8 days ago, maybe. And as you're listening to this, 10 days ago, Keandre released a long, like a 30-minute video breaking down the full big board, 60 prospects. So like, go check it out. But on your big board, you got Ron Holland too. How is for you? Why is he at 2?
Yeah, so I think just in this class in general, there's kind of not as strong a tiers as maybe there were in past years. So, but for Ron Holland being at number 2 for me, I just like his combination of things on the wing. Obviously, it's a wing-driven league for the most part, and it's also a playmakers-driven league. And I think that for those wings at the top of the draft, he has the best combination of tools, being able to impact the games with his motor and energy, especially on the defensive end of the floor. I think that that's something that he's going to bring to the table first and foremost. I think you also look at his ability to drive and get to the rim and get to the paint at a level that a lot of other guys aren't able to. I think he's a little bit of an underrated passer in that aspect also. Obviously, there's a little bit more detail we could get into in terms of like what I mean by that. I think that he's just a little bit better playmaker than simply looking at assist to turnover ratio, and especially early on in the season with some of those struggles he had. And I just think his general progression from a year ago, knowing who he was in high school as like a very sort of rigid and more interior oriented 4-man, and obviously being at about 6'6", 6'7", that's a little bit undersized for going to the next level. But he's completely transformed his game in a lot of ways, and being able to add more things in terms of shot creation on the perimeter, obviously to go along with the ability to drive and slash and get to the paint. And I think you combine all those things, and he's one of the more intriguing prospects to me, even with some of the concerns in his ability to, knock down, catch and shoot threes, which is going to be something that's going to need to come along in those first 3 years for him to like really see the best returns. But I have confidence that he's going to be able to. So that's why he's ends up that high.
Can he be an off-ball player if he can't shoot? Like, does he have the skills to be like maybe just like a sort of second side attacker type of guy?
Yeah, I think so. I think he has the ability to make an impact in some fashion, but obviously he's going to be pretty limited if he's not in some way respectable from as a 3-point shooter. I'm just talking low 30s, even just being able to knock him down. We've seen a guy like Isaac Okoro. As the shot has gotten to a decent level, he's been able to be a big part of what Cleveland does. Maybe not top 5 value, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a comparison between those two. I think they're quite different in some ways, but just as a reference to somebody in the league making an impact, that's I think he could be able to do it.
My super ceiling for Holland is Andre Iguodala. I think that's the 99th percentile. I mean, Andre Iguodala is going to make the Hall of Fame, and I think comparing guys to Hall of Famers is maybe unfair, but that kind of a playmaking defensive wing who, if you had him as your lead, when Iguodala was cast as you got to be the number one option in Philly and stuff, it was oops, this doesn't work. Yeah. And then when he got into a role where it fit, where it was you're the fourth option on, you're the fourth option on offense, or even deeper than that on that absurd Golden State team. But you're such a great connector and such a good defensive player that you are just, you're going to win a freaking finals MVP for holding LeBron to a mere 40 points. But right. I think Holland reminds me a little bit of that. I want to ask you about his teammate, Matt Buzelis, and a couple other guys you've got in that sort of top 10-ish range. Let's chat some more prospects in the second segment. Join us there, won't you? Today's show is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a line of SUVs with capabilities to take your adventure to the next level, like the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. It's got class exclusive Google built right into your always updating assistant that you can call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Instead, you got Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store built right into a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. That's the 2024 Nissan Rogue, the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. What about the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder? It's got room for up to 8, expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. It's got 284 horsepower, up to 6,000 pounds towing. So when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, and the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Today's show is also brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the online therapy tool that is built to fit your schedule. It is created knowing that you need flexibility and you just need a way to find what works for you, because therapy can be incredibly beneficial. Whether you're dealing with these sort of small bumps along the way of everyday life or a major traumatic event, talking to a therapist, a neutral third party about what you're dealing with, and just getting stuff off your chest on a regular basis with someone who's not going to judge you for whatever it is you might be going through can be deeply, deeply valuable. BetterHelp knows that, and they know that therapy can be different for everyone, and they want you to have that opportunity to get things off your chest when you need to. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, still chatting here with Keandre from Hoop Intellect. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Chances are you already are. But if you aren't, head over there and do it now. Okay, so we talked Ron Holland, his G League Ignite teammate, Matas Buzelis. I am intrigued by him, and I was more intrigued by him until he played in the freaking G League, and then he didn't look very good. How do you kind of square his tools with his production at the professional level?
Yeah, so it was a very up and down season for Matas Buzelis, especially down earlier on in the year. It kind of took him a little while to find his bearings in a lot of ways, and he still had his struggles. But I think you look at a guy who is a 6'10" wing / forward who is able to kind of serve as that connective wing in a lot of ways, and being able to attack a closeout, make a play, get to a jumper. Obviously, you want to see the shot come along to fully be who he can be offensively, it's going to need to come along in a way that, in the same way that it did for him at Sunrise his senior year. That's when we really saw him kind of take off as a prospect and a player in a lot of ways. But you combine those things and being able to do a little bit of everything, and then on the defensive end of the floor, provide some help side rim protection. Of course, at his size is also another plus. There are some questions in his ability to guard one-on-one defensively, and also just being able to obviously the shot as well, and just being able to handle physicality. But
Yeah.
I think projecting forward, and we're obviously playing more of a long game, if he's able to get into the right situation, I think that his combination of things is definitely intriguing in the top 5. Especially again in this draft, when you have some of the other options that are available. I think that I like his upside and just what it looks like in the modern NBA.
Yeah, I think his tools are worth taking a swing on. I watched the G League Ignite in person when they came to play the Rip City Remix here in Portland, and Buzelis got bodied. Like he was not physically capable of playing in that level. He had a couple where he just tried to like post seal, and they just bumped him out on the catch. Like the ball's in the air, and it was just like put a forearm in his back, and now he's 2.5 feet further away than when he started to post up. And it's like, okay, well now you're catching it at 19. Like you posted him up at 16, and now you're catching it at 19. Like, you didn't gain an advantage. You probably could have just dribbled your way there, So I worry about that. But like, I don't. He's pretty young. Like, and yeah, guys can get stronger. Like that's a skill you can that's a skill you can definitely hone. Or like you can like lift weights and like eat an NBA diet and all of those things. So I think the tools are there. I worry, like he shot the ball well in high school, as you alluded to, right? Like he was supposed to be a shooter. Why don't you think he can shoot? What happened?
Well, I think one thing is always making that adjustment to the NBA line. I think we kind of forget that sometimes, going from the high school line to the NBA line. And especially when we talk about G League or other professional leagues in relation to college, obviously the line is a little bit different. So I think that was a big adjustment for him, especially for a guy who does lack a little bit physically. Kind of just building that strength, I think, is naturally going to help him get shots, make more shots in the future. I would say, though, in the pre-draft process, if I'm a team, determining whether or not I feel like he's going to be a plus shooter in the NBA is likely going to swing some of that in terms of draft position. If you get him into a workout and he continues to struggle a little bit in that aspect, he might not be as appealing, because I do think that is important to just his overall archetype of a player. Given he isn't the most physical, he's not like a big time slasher or Ron Holland, somebody who can, really get out athlete you in some ways. But yeah, that would be kind of one of the main things that I'll be, looking for.
He's got to get in there and light up the chair. He's got to, when they get him in those, he's actually, Matis wanted to play one-on-one against Risacher. So maybe get him in let him play once and see if that jumper translates playing once. Let's talk about Risacher. He's up there at ESPN's mock has him going first overall. I haven't seen a ton of him. He seems wild as a first overall pick to me. Where are you at on Risacher? Because I think Portland Trailblazers fans specifically, they see 6'8", good defender who can shoot it, and they say that's what we need. That's like the player we need. Where are you with Risacher right now?
Yeah, I'm becoming a little bit lower over the last couple months. Now, quick background: coming into the year, off of FIBA and all that, I wasn't very high on him at all. I had him, I think, maybe in the 20s, late teens. I had just some concerns in his ability to knock down shots and just handle physicality, be able to do anything with the ball and make decisions at a high level. So those are some of my concerns. And he kind of dispelled those early on in the year. Shot about 50% from three. He looked the part, right? That guy like that you were talking about. Every team wants the guy who big wing, can knock down threes, kind of just get in where he fits in everywhere else, decent enough athlete to do things. That's what everybody wants. But over the last couple months, he's been ice cold from three. The decision making when he does get the ball and has to make a quick decision, or being able to identify when he needs to make that dump off or take that all the way to the rim and draw a foul, go hard. Those types of things haven't been there. He obviously isn't the the most versatile on-ball defender, high-level team defender. He's able to do some things in passing lanes, things of that nature. But I think, the combination of things, just seeing him, I would stay away from him as a number one pick. I just think there's too many concerns there. With the return that's not nearly as high in terms of his overall upside. You're not looking at a guy who's really going to do too much with the ball, even at his peak player. Like his comp he's often getting is MPJ. Obviously, what he does in the league is valuable. Everybody wants that, but you're not getting a lot out of him in terms of creation and being able to provide that level of value. So I'm probably going to end up closer to 8 to 10 to maybe even lower than that on Zach, but I get the idea of him kind of taking him a little bit further than it might in some other years.
Yeah, I think like you said, like his skill set on this sort of like very basics of his skill set is what teams want. But depends on where you like draft capital investing that high on someone who is I've been calling him French Rashard Lewis. If you were to take Rashard Lewis 1 overall, would you have a pretty good player for a long time in the league? Absolutely, you would. Would you have a cornerstone at any point of your franchise? Absolutely, you would not. Rashard Lewis was like a good player on a team that made the finals. So it's not like he couldn't be very productive in the league, but you would still need to draft Dwight Howard after that. Like you still need to have a Hall of Famer to sort of carry him along in that incredibly deep Magic team in 2009. Okay. Another name that was higher up on the board that has slipped a little bit is Cody Williams. At one point, I think Cody Williams was a top 5 guy on a lot of boards. He seems to be slipping to the late lottery, like someone who would be available for that in the Blazers range at like 14. I saw him play, I think 3 full games in college. And I get he looks like an NBA player, right? Like the frame and all of that and sort of the skill set. He never played like one. What is the appeal that what is the appeal with Williams right now for you?
Yeah. So I think the biggest appeal for him is obviously you look at his, finishing numbers at the rim, his slashing ability. He's at about 70% on the season in that respect. Just being able to, use a push cross, get in the lane, using his length, great strides, do things of that nature, be able to make connected plays and also defend a couple positions eventually. That's kind of the pitch with him. And then obviously he shot the ball well this year. Now, my questions for him would be more one physically, just being able to match up with guys. There was possessions in a time they played USC. Isaiah Collier, who was obviously stocky, but a guard, just completely discarding him when he's, guarding him. Just being able to, handle things around the rim and, in those drives and being able to add more to the handle. And obviously his inability to get to a pull-up jumper and more questions about the shot than I think are there, given it was on low volume and it's not the most fluid in terms of mechanics. Those questions are coming to the forefront a little bit more, especially post-injury and the way that he performed, in that. So I think the pitch is kind of just toolsy wing who has, some upside in a lot of different places. His brother being Jalen Williams, J-Dub.
Okay, yeah. If his brother wasn't Jalen Williams, is he a lottery pick?
I think that I think he'd still get buzz because, toolsy wing, like it's always going to get that.
And he's
that
big,
appeal.
but 6'8", yeah.
Yeah. The higher end projection, especially when he was going like number 1 in mocks and all that had a lot to do with J-Dub and his progression from being a Santa Clara freshman to lottery pick in a couple years. So,
yeah.
That's kind of, I do think that it had something to do with it.
Me too. Like J-Dub might make an all NBA teams here in the next couple of years. Like he's excellent. he's so good. And so it's like, yeah, he has a little brother.
Right.
Listen,
right.
If you've ever played like an AAU tournament, they'll be like, you got a little brother. and then all of a sudden that guy's on the team the next weekend. Right. I feel like there's a little bit to that where it's like, oh, okay. Well, that's what he's like at 22. I wonder what Cody Williams could be like at 22. So I think there's some of that there. I don't know it as well as you do by any means. But that is my sort of uninformed conspiracy theory. I want to talk to you about some other prospects that kind of in that 14 late lottery range as well, and maybe get some opinions on some early second round guys you like, because the Blazers have picks at 34 and 40. That's what we'll do to close the show. Join us in the third segment, won't you? Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. If you're a small business and you're hiring, you know what you need. You need someone who can fill the role you need. You need a quality professional that's right for exactly what you're looking for, and you need to find them fast. And LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but that would be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Plus, on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. There's over 2.5 million small businesses that are already using LinkedIn for hiring because they make the process easier and intuitive. They even have tools to help you write job descriptions so you can get who you want quickly and easily. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still chatting here with Keandre from Hoop Intellect. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. So a couple guys that I kind of like in the late lottery. Blazers are likely to have 96.5% chance of having a top 14 or having the 14th pick in the draft. We're still a couple weeks out from knowing where the lottery results land, but a couple guys I like in that range. I like Kel'el Ware. I don't know if I like Jacoby Walter, so I'll ask you to sell me on him. And I kind of like Tyler Smith. Let's start with Kel'el Ware. I feel like you have him higher than I typically see him, but I've seen him in that sort of late lottery range. What is his projection like at the next level?
Yeah. So, in terms of, just quickly draft range for him, I think it could be kind of all over the place, anywhere from about 16 to, some people like him in the early second round a little bit.
Right.
But the pitch with him is more, 7-footer with versatility, potential ability to eventually stretch the floor, and also, finish plays at the rim, block shots, and do, a number of those things, move a little bit on the perimeter, not a full-time switch guy, but somebody who can at least move around, play to the level a little bit. So that's kind of the general pitch with him. The big concerns with him are all like motor and being able to handle physicality and all that related, because his freshman year at Oregon, that was a big thing that was not there. He came into, that freshman year as, is it Derek Lively or is it Kel'el Ware? That was kind of a big conversation. And, this year he showed a little bit more of that at Indiana, but at the same time, there's still some of that. You watch some of those games against guys like Zach Edey, Donovan Clingan. It showed up at times, and those are kind of his, or those are some of the more prominent bigs for some people in this class. So that's going to be a big question with him.
Would you take Edey or Ware? You're at 14.
That's an interesting question. I think I'm growing higher on Edey just by the day.
Okay.
I obviously have Ware ranked higher. It'd be a tough question to honestly answer. I think I might lean Edey, but I haven't been a guy who really likes him in the lottery range. I think it's just going to be tough for him defensively.
Yeah,
but
I'm a doubter, honestly. I do. So like, at some point, I just got to accept the production, right? Like someone who produces at that level, it's like, maybe this is just what he is, right? But I when I watch him, I just feel like Edey just takes a right-handed hook. He turns over his left shoulder and he takes a right-handed hook. And against more physical guys that can sit on that shoulder and say, "Turn over your right shoulder, dog. I dare you." And he'll say, "Oh, I can't." I worry more about the production staying there. He's so strong and he's so big that he's probably going to be fine on like putbacks and all that stuff. And he'll get to his dominant hand when he wants to against a lot of matchups, right? And teams that go small, he could probably punish switches. But like teams that stay big, right? Teams that can say like, even say like Mason Plumlee, right? Just like a good positional defender. Mace will sit on his shoulder and say, turn the other way. And I worry that Edey doesn't have that counter yet. That's for me more than the defense stuff. I feel like his bread and butter work in the pros. I feel like that's for me where I'm at.
Yeah, he's going to have a huge style of play change. That's the thing. Like if you're picking him, you're not picking him to play the same way he did at Purdue. He's going to do more screening and rolling, using that, big body to open up lanes for other guards and being able to, roll a little bit quicker and, be a lob threat and those things, instead of the high level, post play that he had.
Yeah, direct five. Yeah.
Right. That's why I'm always like, I love the production. He put up some of the best efficiency and BPM numbers in, college basketball history. Same time, he's not going to play like that in the NBA. So how much do you really take from that other than, he has pretty good touch for a guy that size?
Yeah. He's a really good screener. So maybe that, like maybe on second units, just being able to mash people on screens will give him enough space to do what he does. I didn't think he was an NBA player last season. I do think he's an NBA player, probably. I just wonder at 15, I think it's probably in this draft, I think it's probably fine. But higher, like if he were to go like 8th, I'm just going to clown on the show. Okay. Another guy I want to ask you about, I know I mentioned Jacoby Walter and how I'm out on him, but I want to ask you here because I feel like this is in your wheelhouse. Tijan Salon. He's getting some buzz pretty high up there. He seems like a real lump of clay type of guy. Like he's a long way away from being what he is. What do you think his draft range is realistically?
Yeah, I think his draft range is pretty wide as well. I think there's going to be teams, especially in the workout progress and through process and through the combine, that are going to at least sniff around the idea of late lottery into those mid-teens. I'm more of a 20s guy. I think that's where you would probably take him most and get the most value out of him, just because there are a lot of things in terms of like his feel and just being more consistent in a lot of ways that I'm just a little bit more questionable on. But like 6'9", 6'10", at high level athlete, somebody who has high energy when the shot is working, especially playing in a pro league for the first time in his career, has had a lot of moments that, especially in this class, you might want to take a swing on somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I like the defensive energy because I do think playing hard is a skill. I think that is something that is hard to develop. Guys who play hard when they're young, you don't have to teach them to play hard. And guys who don't necessarily always run hot, I think that's hard to kind of teach them to run hot. So that intrigues me a little bit. But if you play hard and you can't like do anything off the dribble, you're still probably not a very good NBA player. So the first box for me is checked, and then there's like so many others. But for the Blazers, my sort of like thinking here is that they're pretty far away from being good. So like taking bigger swings, like to me, like Dalton Knecht doesn't appeal to me, right? Because I think he's like, I feel like he's going to be an NBA player, but like, what's his upside? But like Salon, where it's like his downside is that he's just like straight up not a pro, right? He just doesn't belong in the NBA. But his upside is that he's like a really intriguing 6'9" forward. I'd almost rather say, if both of them are on the board, for me, if I'm taking Salon over Knecht all day long for the Blazers, because they're a team that's further away. They're a team that maybe it's more valuable to throw darts than it is to like get certainties. There's nothing certain in the draft, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, before we get you out of here, give me the Blazers have 34 and 40 in your sort of early second round types. Who are some of your names that you really like in that range?
Yeah, I like this part of the draft a lot. Pretty much every year, I think there's usually a lot of value in this spot, and I think this year will be the same. One of those guys for me would be Jamir Watkins out of Florida State. Now, he's somebody who's not necessarily on a lot of boards, the mainstream boards, but he's somebody who I like a lot as a wing defender, high level, one of the best in college basketball, in my opinion. Somebody who improved quite a bit as a shooter over the years, and does have the ability to make a play off the dribble, play for others in certain ways, and is super physical. That aspect, he already has an NBA level body, NBA level athlete. So as a kind of a wing defender, Swiss Army knife in some ways, you want to get the shot to a certain level, but he's got the ability to be a potential contributor in the league. So I like him. Another one would be Harrison Ingram out of UNC. He's got late first round buzz. somebody who's just a gamer in a lot of ways. Wing/forward, defends, passes, shoots at a high level now. I think he's somebody who a team like the Blazers could use as, just in that bench role, kind of connect the dots in a lot of ways. Obviously, if you're looking for a swing, maybe not. But as a contributor, he's somebody I like. And then
I'm a Chapel Hill native. I have personally pitched Harrison Ingram to Joe Cronin. Not even a joke. I literally was like, hey, I was like, I got a second round prospect for you. So I'm obviously rooting for H. If he could shoot, he's going to be a really good NBA player. And he had some moments where he really shot it well. If he can't shoot, it'll be an adventure for him because he's not big and he's not super fast laterally.
Yeah, I got one more for you. Well, I guess you could say two, but Paco Dadier, I think he's going to be a draft riser. But if we're looking for that swing, somebody who internationally has a lot of tools, high-level athlete, somebody who has flashes of, shot creation, shot the ball a lot better this year, and can defend a couple positions out on the wing. He's somebody who I think anywhere from 40 down into, 20 is going to have a lot of buzz, depending on how the workouts and pre-draft process goes for him. So he's another one who
I think he's going to be 18 on draft night too. He's like super, super young. So yeah,
he's another one who I think has a lot of upside. If he does fall to that point, I think it would be hard for me to pass him up.
Sure. Okay. Well, you said you had another one. Give me your last one. Well, I'm not going to kick you out of here if you got another name.
Last one. I think, I could talk all day about this part of the draft. I think there's going to be.
Okay. Give me two more. Give me two more. We'll run. This is Friday's show. We'll run it a little long for the weekend.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go with, we'll go with Nikola Jurisic. He is, as of late, he's been on fire. I think he's going to be somebody who continues to rise up draft boards as well. Obviously playing with Mega and Nikola Topic for most of this season. He struggled a little bit, was a big prospect last year, but as he's gotten better shooting the ball, just being more confident as a playmaker, he's a wing, 6'8", can do a few different things out there, has some upside that I think could get him, into first round talks as we keep going over the next couple months. And then finally, I guess we could just stick with the wings. Bobby Klintman, another guy who toolsy wing, 6'8", 6'9", can, do a few different things. I have his, scouting report up on the channel. So, another guy who kind of fits that 3-and-D mold in some ways, I think would be a good value at that point of the draft if he's there.
I like it. Okay. Before you get out of here, tell the people what you got. This is your money-making month, Keandre. People are going to be flooding to the channel. It's huge for you. What do you got coming up for us, and what is up on the channel right now that we can go check out?
Yeah, so there's definitely scouting reports coming out. We've already got Alex Sarr, Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepard, Donovan Clingan, those guys coming soon. And then for Blazers fans specifically, guys like Ron Holland, Modest Buzelis, more wingy Zaccharie Risacher will be coming over the next couple weeks. So definitely tune into that. Coming up soon, big boards, mock drafts, all that good stuff over the next month, leading into the draft too as well. So that's all we got.
Listen, Hoop Intellect is it's really a fantastic draft resource. It is. If you are someone who's watching this show on YouTube right now, I'm gonna link the channel in the bottom. You probably don't need me to link it because you're already there. But if you are new to this, or you are maybe someone who's an audio listener and not familiar with the game, go great breakdowns, great info, and like good compact 15 minutes. You feel like you know a lot about prospects, and you can fake to your friends like you've done all this draft research. And what you did was you just watched Keandre's video, and now you feel like you know a lot more. Keandre, thanks so much. You're the best. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on anytime.
Dear listeners, come back next week. 5 more shows, Monday through Friday, wherever you get podcasts, free on all your platforms, and also on YouTube is what we do. Go tell your friends about the show, and then come back next week for more of them. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.